Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just making sure everything is populating correctly here, and that audio is going through. And it looks like that is the case. All right. So if you have any questions about any features as I go over them, please go ahead and just feel free to use the chat, and I'll respond to them as I see them. Up on the screen here, we've got our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there via the virtualpbx.com website. If you mouse over, it'll be a pull down, and there'll be a link there for the dash login. In general, I recommend bookmarking this page so that way you don't have to keep searching for it in the future. And to log in, we'll need your email address, which is your username, your password, which should have been emailed to you, and then the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if for some reason you didn't get the email, like say the admin who created your user forgot to click on send credentials to the user, then what you would want to do is click on forgot your info over here in the bottom right. And then it'll flip over. We still need the email / username. And then we need either the account name, right, so the company name, or you'll want to get the phone number, or one of the company phone numbers. And then you click on reset password. This will send you an email with a link to let you change your password. And then after you've changed your password, the system will log you out and then make you log back in with your new password. And then once you do so, you just type it in, and that also gives you a chance to click on the Remember Me box and then click to sign in. And it does take a little bit to load. Now, I'm using a test account that's been around for about 5 years now, so it automatically takes me here to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, however, the system will take you to your account page, which you can access up here by clicking on your name. And here's my user information. This is where you would change your own personal email address, for example, for login purposes, as well as your own password. This is especially important for system admins. And you have the option to change the language or the time zone, which is probably the most important thing, and format. Now, as an admin, you also have access to the account settings over here to the left. And the main thing that people change is right here, the time zone, right? They want, by default, I believe all accounts start off with being in LA, which obviously doesn't work for everybody. And you would simply click on the little pull down here and do a search for the appropriate city. Now, as I mentioned, this is a test account. So on a live account, so your accounts, you'll have a section underneath the user here for billing information. This is where you would update your credit card information, for example. You can see your service plan. You can update who the actual official billing contact is as well. And then when you're done here, you just click on the close box. Now, one thing to also keep in mind is that first time logging in, the dash wizard will pop up giving you highlights of what things are and what they do. So you may have to close out of the little pop-up windows as well. All right, here on the dashboard along the top, again, you have your name where you can click on to get back to that account page. For some of you, you may have a D&D toggle, right? D&D stands for Do Not Disturb. If it's white, that means it's enabled, right? So if you click on it again, it'll go to basically being all black. And that just means no calls will go to your user, right? So enters your extension number directly, and it'll go right to voicemail. The reason I don't have it here is because I am also in an ACD queue, and we have found problems with agents clicking accidentally on D&D, but still being logged into a queue. Well, they're not going to be offered calls in that scenario, so we just took it out for agents. so that way they don't have that particular issue. Next up, we have the little question mark icon or help icon. First up, you can open up a chat window to speak to a support member so they can walk you through a particular feature that you're working with. You have a link here that will open up a new tab to take you to the support pages. So again, you can look up different features as well as different videos we have on various features. Over here, the online store. This is basically it's a store.virtualpbx.com where you can order a VoIP phone or routers, etc. And then above that, we have the web phone. The web phone only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a desktop or mobile computer to make and receive calls via your internet connection. We got the little hamburger icon here, or the 3 horizontal lines. This takes you to other features of Dash, some of which, like ACD queues, do have fees associated with them, and I'll be sure to highlight those as we go through them. And then we have the logout icon. On the left, we have these are more core features of Dash. Only a couple of them are plan specific or have additional fees associated with them. All right. In the middle here, we have total users. All right, so I've got 22 users. Let's go back. So these are people who are making and receiving calls on your account. Depending on your plan, adding users may increase your bill, so that is something to be aware of. Then we go down here, we've got total devices. First up, we have soft phone. So soft phone means it's a software application, usually on a computer, that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Now, because smartphones have become powerful and are essentially mini computers, you can also have a soft phone on your cell phone. So that could also be an app that you're using there. All right. Next up, we have cell phone. Cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. I think most of us have encountered that in our lives. The web phone, again, that uses Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. Again, that's pretty much limited to the desktop versions of those apps. A SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone. Okay, so VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, right? Soft phone is a VoIP phone. Web phone is a VoIP phone. SIP phone is a VoIP phone, right? So SIP is a subtype of VoIP phones. There are other kinds of physical VoIP phones that are not SIP phones. So if you're out shopping, that's something to be aware of, and we'll cover some of the makes and models that we support a bit later. And then landline, pretty self-explanatory. And then you notice down here, I have unregistered devices, 23. So what this is saying is the dashboard is telling you you have 23 VoIP devices that are not connected, right? Unregistered means that's not connected to us, right? If they're registered, that means we can send calls to them. So that can be anything from a phone not being plugged in or someone didn't log into their app, right? It could be more complicated, right? It could be something like someone got a new router and now their phone's not registering. So that means there's probably some sort of network settings we have to go over. More catastrophically, it could be the internet service provider is down, right? But then you probably don't have internet, so you probably that would make sense that a VoIP phone wouldn't work at that time. All right, down here I got total numbers, 33. These are phone numbers that your customers call to get to you, right? So these are customer-facing phone numbers. Your plan, typically, or most plans, include between 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of their monthly plan price. Once you go over that, you'll run into an overcharge per phone number per month. I believe it's $1.99 to $4.99 per month, but that's something you'd want to check either on the pricing page or with our account services team. So obviously, in this case, I've got about 18 numbers that I'm paying for on top of my allotment. Now, if we go down here, you see I've got the first two breakdowns here is assigned numbers and spare numbers. So assigned number means I'm using it, right? It goes to a salesperson, right? Or to my technical support group, or my billing ACD queue, or it's one of my main numbers you see over there to the right, or the conference number, etc. Now, the spare numbers, these are numbers I'm not using, Now they still count towards my allotment of phone numbers, but basically they're not going anywhere right now. Someone can call them, they're going to get a busy tone, right? This could be because we had a promotion running for 4th of July, and it's no longer 4th of July here in the US or anywhere else, technically. So we take that number out of service, so that way we're not getting calls on that phone number that no longer for a promotion that's no longer in effect, right? Or you could have gotten a bunch of numbers in sequence, and you just haven't gotten to those last numbers in the sequence yet, but you still want to hold on to those phone numbers. All right, further breakdown down here is USDID and US toll-free. It's actually US Canada toll-free, right? So this is an 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So you can have a number in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can go get a number, in Chicago, Illinois. Go down, get a number in Miami. Now, you can have US international phone numbers, right? If you're interested in getting an international phone number, you're going to want to email our porting team at porting@virtualpbx.com. They're going to need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number for, and then they will let you know if there's additional requirements, right? Some countries require proof of presence within the city that you're requesting a phone number. Others don't. So if there's any additional requirements, the porting team will let you know. Once we get that from you, then we can go about getting the number for you. All right, conference bridges, I have 9. That means I've enabled 9 of my users to host or moderate a conference. All right, you can have it for everyone if you want. It's just on this account, I've only enabled it on 9. Up here, towards the top right, we got our main numbers. Right, so all these 3 numbers, they behave in the same fashion, right? They're going to go to the same location, and they're going to have the same main greeting. All right, then we've got our conference number here. Stop that. So you can have multiple conference numbers, but the conference number is the number everyone dials to get to the conference, whether they're among your staff, or they're your vendors or your customers. Oops. Fax box number, you can have the one fax box number. This turns on faxing on your account, and this is your main inbound fax number. Company directory, this is a download link. Actually downloads a text file, so that way you can see all your users and their extension numbers, right, in case people like having that pinned physically somewhere in their cube or by their desk. The soft phone directory, this downloads a file that is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. This allows you to see the presence or status of the other staff members making use of the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone app. So, for instance, this is something I have on my own soft phone app, so I can see if my coworker Mike is on a call or not. So hopefully he's not, so then I can give him a call and say, hey, I need to talk to you about this situation with this particular customer. Likewise, like my boss could see if I'm on a call or not and say, hey, I need to talk to you about, whatever issue that came up. Hopefully I'm not in trouble. All right, next up we have the store discount code. This is unique to each account. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our web store. Again, if you want to order like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. And then lastly, we've got the account realm here. This is used in a couple different things. One, it's used to program a third-party application or device, right? So basically something that's like a VoIP phone that doesn't show up on our auto provision list, which we'll be getting to under devices. It's also used for outbound faxing. So currently on Dash, sending out a fax is via email. So you create an email using your username email address. In the to field of the email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, right, the @ symbol, and then you put in your account realm. And then you simply attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right, up here we have caller ID. This is your main company caller ID. Unfortunately, this pull down isn't working on my streaming software here, but you can select any of your main numbers here. And then you got the company caller ID name or CNAME. This can be 15 characters, including spaces or special characters. And then once you click that Save Changes, this gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. Now, it takes about 3 business days for those other carriers to update their servers. That's not something we can control. It's usually a little bit faster, but not always. And some things to keep in mind about CNAME is that we can only provide the information out to the carriers. What is actually shows up at the device that you call to is not up to us, right? It's the device itself, right? If it has your number programmed, that information would come up, obviously. But the carrier that they're on has the final say about what shows up on the phone's displays on their network, right? So even more problematic is if you're making a test call, for instance, for CNAME to a cell phone, right? The cell phone carriers definitely have control over what shows up on your cell phone's display, right? When you get a call sometimes from a number you don't know, sometimes your carrier will say, telemarketer or spam risk, right? No company puts that as their CNAME, right? That's your carrier trying to provide a service to you saying, hey, this might be a spam risk or telemarketer. That's not something we control. Even if with the CNAME information, we get that pushed out there, your AT&Ts, your Verizons, etc. of the world, they probably will not choose to show the CNAME information that's coming from us. I know from experience that for AT&T, if I want the CNAME information to show up for all my calls, I actually need to pay for that via AT&T, right? It's like I think it's $10 a month or something. It's part of a bundle of other features. I believe some of the other carriers have similar. Now, there are carriers who do not support CNAME, and it's possible for an outbound call from your VoIP phones to go through one of those carriers. Usually they're smaller or regional carriers. And if that's the case, that means the caller ID information does not get through to the destination either. Even for the major carriers, right, if they're having some sort of issue, right, like there's higher than expected call volume, major tropical storm, right, that can prevent CNAME from getting through because they're more concerned about connecting the call. Next up, you have the company emergency information, or E911. This address is associated with this phone number, right? So meaning if someone picks up a VoIP phone, dials 911, this is the address information that gets transmitted to emergency services. So you want to make sure, A, that this address is correct, but you can also assign each of your phone numbers on your account with different E911 information. So then you can also then assign your VoIP phones to those particular phone numbers so they represent the correct location for that person. So when you're done here, you would click on Save Changes. And again, that CNAME information takes at least a couple business days to complete. Next up, we got hold music. This would be your company default hold music. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as when a call comes in, gets to a user, and then the user presses hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this hold music file will play. You can upload your own file. You can basically you'd find it on your computer. Dash will play back .wav, right, .wave, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. And the main thing about the difference between mono and stereo, right? When you call on a phone, it's got one speaker. And if you try to have a stereo track play over that one speaker, sometimes you get lots of static, sometimes you just get silence. So you do want to make sure that your hold music file, or actually any of your media files on your Dash account, are recorded in mono. And then you would click on the little blue and white up arrow icon here, and then click on Save Changes. Right, now ours is actually part of main number, so we're just going to go to main number and work our way down. And we start at the top here with main company phone numbers. Right, so all these numbers behave the same way. If I decide I want to add another number here, I can do so. Now I can add one of my spare numbers by clicking on Add Spare Numbers. I can select one of these 3 numbers. Right, or I can buy a new number. Right, I've got my options for local or toll-free. Right, if I select toll-free, I choose the toll-free prefix I want to work with or hope to get a number in. I click on search, and then I find a number that I like. I just click add. It adds it to my cart here at the bottom. You can also see that the number is here, and I can toss it if I don't want to. And I can add multiple numbers here at the same time. Now, when I'm done adding numbers, I scroll down to the bottom and I click on By Number. System is verifying that the number was still available because it's a dynamic list, and then it adds it to my account, and it's ready to go. For local numbers, it's a little bit more complicated in the fact that you need to know the area code that you want a phone number in. All right, so for instance, if I want a San Jose based phone number, that's a 408 area code, I can click search, and I see I have these numbers available. Now let's go with, right, there's some area codes that we just can't get numbers for any longer. So let's do a search for 310. Okay, 310 is one of the LA area codes. It's actually, I believe, the original LA area code. So there's nothing available. Now, what this means is we could place a back order for the number. The problem is we don't know when we'll ever get it. Right? It'll just suddenly pop up one day. Oh, your number's here. And you get no choice about what the number is either, because you're basically waiting on someone else who already has a 310 number to give up on that number, right? Release it, cancel their service, and then we can get it. But if I go 323, which is also in Southern California, then I can see, oh, I've got other number options. I can then add and by numbers. One thing to keep in mind when you add, especially for local numbers, right? The area code and the prefix, the second set of 3 numbers, that combination determines the city that shows up when you make an outbound call. Right? That's not something we can change, other than changing the phone number completely. Right? You notice here that we have a little gear icon next to these numbers, and that these other numbers have other icons in front of them. So here's where you would set up caller ID for each individual phone number, right? So you can set up the outbound CNAM, as well as turn on the ability to have CNAM information show up on your staff members' phones. E911, this is again where you would set up the E911 information for each individual phone number. It could be in a completely different location. Just want to make sure the address is correct. Prepend is for your VoIP phone users. You can add text here. We can say what it's called, July, right? And so now whenever a call comes in on this toll-free phone number, goes to one of my users on their VoIP phones, on the display they'll see the word July and then the inbound caller ID. So that way they know, oh, this is on that new July promotion that we're running. And I have the little icon here to show for it. All right, and then messaging, your account needs to have Zapier integration or webhooks to make use of messaging on a main number, because basically you need to link it to other software. And that is that. So once you have a main number, then you can look at things like your office hour strategy. Now, once the account's initially set up, it's going to have 24-hour open office, meaning, hey, you're ready for business. But a lot of customers choose custom office hours. Put a check mark in front of each day of the week that you're open. And then in the boxes here to the right, you select your open hours in military or 24-hour time. You also have the option at the bottom, I don't know if it's showing up on YouTube, where you can say you're closed for lunch. If you put a check mark there, then you just enter your lunch hours and then click on Save Changes. Then we got office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, you put a check mark up here. Right? And then over here to the right, you have Add Holiday. You have the options for single day, date range, or advanced. Right? So single day, it's like what we have, like right here, 4th of July observed. Although it looks like someone misspelled that. So each of those options, right? Adding single day, date range, advanced, it creates a new row. You give it a name, and then you put the month and the date that you want it to take effect for a single day. For date range, like we have up here for Christmas, right? We have starts on December 23rd and ends on December 26th, right? That means the system will automatically know when the calendar changes to that date, it puts you in holiday mode. Now, realize or notice that there's no year indicator here, so you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. You want to do those as single days. And then as an example for the advanced with this retreat here, I'm saying the first Friday in July, which would have been the 2nd this year, we're on holiday. Right, because I have Friday here. So basically these pull downs, it's the month. And then the second one is 1st through 5th as well as last. And then the day of the week. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, incoming call handling. Now, this is for your main numbers, right? So these 5 phone numbers I have up here, because I added 2. During my open hours, right now they're going to my virtual receptionist, right? During my after hours, I'm having it instead go to, it looks like a queue. And if my staff members don't answer it, then it goes to my lunchtime, or my after hours, virtual receptionist. And then during my holidays, I'm having calls go here, and I'm sending it straight to a voicemail box. But you notice that the options in general are all the same for each of those time frames. So, call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist. Let's click on that link there, opens up a window. On my left, under main menu, right, these are the options that people can press on their phone to navigate through the phone system. You would click on Add Route to give yourself another option here. Now this pull down, unfortunately, not working. You have 0 through 9 and star, and then you choose where it's going to go. So let's go up to this one here. Go up the top. So you got the Smart PBX directory. Basically, calls are when they press this option, they would go to the directory where they can enter people, dial by name, right? Trying to find the person they're looking for. You can send calls to a specific user, whoever you want them to. You can send callers to a call queue, right? So like your sales queue, billing queue, support queue, etc. You can send calls to a specific device. Now, I don't typically recommend this because if that device doesn't have voicemail on it, for example, then the call will just end at some point, and that's usually not a great experience for your customer. Then you can also have a media file play. This would be like if you want to give like hours of operation or directions. However, once that media file plays, the call will end. So typically what I recommend in that kind of case, or you would have it go to a voicemail box. You can set the voicemail box to be announce only. So it gives a voicemail, gives that greeting. The call will still end, but it's a little bit less disturbing for people because usually the system will say thank you and goodbye. Scroll it down. You can send it to groups. So groups are ring groups. Ring groups and ACD queues are somewhat related. Basically, ACD queues are a more powerful version of groups, or there's more options in terms of routing calls and how inbound calls behave. Groups, basically, call comes in and it rings in either in order or everybody, depending on how you have it set up. You have advanced call flows. This would be if you're making use of submenuing, right? So you have 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Those 2 options go to another set of menus with a new greeting, right? So an English greeting and a Spanish greeting, and then menu options to the relevant staff members, and then you can send it to a voicemail box. Over here on the right, we've got your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech. You just type in what you want it to say and click update. This has a limit of about 250 to 350 characters. Basically, if you get really complicated, it starts taking or reducing the amount of characters you can use. This is good for if you've never used a PBX system, or you just want to test this out to see how things are going to work, and you're not exactly sure how you're gonna have everything route, you might be making a lot of changes, right? It's quick, it's easy. One downside of it is that every time you click update and then save changes, it will create a new file with the same name, right? So so we're on my main open hours. So it's gonna be main open hours menu TTS, right? When I click update and save changes, if I add another line here and then click update, save changes, it's gonna use the exact same file name. So what I recommend is whenever you first create a text-to-speech greeting, go to your greetings tab, which is over here. We'll be getting to it shortly, and change the name to something you'll recognize. And that way you can always flip back to it if you need to after you make a change. You can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Again, you would choose the file on your computer and then click upload, update, save changes. Choose from an existing greeting. This will be pull down. It will show all your media files on the account and you can select the one that you want to use. Then we've got recorded over the phone. Now it says pick up a phone registered to the account. By default, what this means is the system wants you to use a VoIP phone that you've put on the account. Use that to call in and record over the phone. It's a security feature. Now, if you don't want to do that, or let's say you haven't added the VoIP phones yet because you're still waiting for them to get to your location, but you want to get a main greeting in place so that way you can make tests and see how things are working. Under here, settings, you scroll down where it says allow outside recording, this one right here. If you turn this to on, right, you would click save changes. Now you can call in from a cell phone or landline. And then you can still follow these steps, right? So you dial your main number and then you enter this PIN. Now this PIN number is specific to this time of day, meaning it's specific to my open hours. So I can only use it during my open hours. I can only change my main greeting for my open hours when the system is on open hours, right? This PIN number will not work during after hours or on my holidays, and vice versa for those PIN numbers. When you record a greeting, so on a new account, right, the system, when you call in, it's basically going to ask you to start recording a greeting, right? You just enter in the PIN number, it'll walk you through the steps. On an established account, like say you already have a greeting in place, the system will overwrite the content of the existing file, right? So I have greeting A playing right now. I call in, I enter in this PIN number, I start, giving a new greeting file A, still there on my system, but the content completely changed. That's fine for some people. Other people have like a main greeting they use for most of the year and they only change it for holidays. In which case you want to make sure greeting A stays the same, so you would want to change the file that's choose a just different existing file, and then when you call in, you can record it over that secondary file. Then we've got professional recording services. We have partnered with Snap Recordings, so when you click order here at the bottom, it will take you to their website. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They've got different forms of English, Spanish, and French, so you can do multilingual greetings. They have their own packages for what they call hold treatment, which is a mix of a music file and a script being read. They handle their own billing. They typically deliver via email, and then you would just upload your own file. All right, settings. So first up, we got number of retries on missed dial. Typically, you want to set this around 1 or 2, but basically, it's how many times can someone make a mistake when they call in, right? So if I call in and I hit, looks like number 4, right? It's not a valid option. The system will then replay the greeting, saying, "Hey, you made a mistake. Here's your greeting options again." Let's say I still messed up, right? Let's say I have a kid yelling in my ear. I hit 6 by accident. In this case, right, that's my second mistake. So the system says, okay, you made an invalid entry. Here's the greeting again. And then I can have that one last option. Now, if I make a mistake a third time, then it's going to send me to the default route. If I don't have a default route, it will simply end the call, saying we've not recognized your entries, and goodbye, essentially. Next up, we have dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the inbound caller is done, right? So I press 4, and the system's going to wait basically 10 seconds before, oh, you meant just 4. Well, that's not a valid entry. Versus, I meant to hit, 4022 to get to a particular extension number. That's why you would want this to have something. Well, 10 is a little extreme. I usually recommend people put it at like 2, right? That way the people aren't just waiting forever. Allow outside recording. Again, this is for that main greeting to record it over with a cell phone or landline. Allow extension dialing. If you have this on, that means when people come in, they can enter an extension number if they know it, and the system will recognize it and send them to that extension. If I turn this off, that means they can only press one of these menu options or get to the default route, right? If they know an extension number, the system won't take it as a valid entry. And then here we've got suppress playing of invalid entry, right? So by default, this is actually on. The system will tell the inbound caller, oh, you pressed invalid entry, and then we'll play the message. Some people don't like that for their customers, and they just turn that off. Purely up to you. Now, any changes you make under main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you want to click on Save Here, and then you need to click Save Changes under Incoming Call Handling. And that way all your changes get saved. Now, the second option, right, calls come in, and actually we have it here for after hours, right? But calls come in, I'm offering it to Aaron, but this is a pull down, right? I can send it to any user, I can send it to a ring group, I can send it to a queue, I can send it to a specific device, you can send it to a media file, and that's pretty much it. Or advanced call flows. Now this will ring whoever you select for 20 seconds. Right after 20 seconds, it will go then to this virtual receptionist. We're still under open hours, so this virtual receptionist is what we are just looking at. I'll bring it up, see? All right, third option here, I'm sending it to Aaron. Again, this is a pull down. You got users, groups, queues, media file, devices, advanced call flows, meaning you're sending it to a secondary attendant, etc. The last option at the very bottom down here is skip to voicemail. Right, but basically, let's say I offer to Aaron again for 20 seconds, and if he doesn't pick up, it's going to his voicemail box. Right. This last one here only shows up if you have the auto attendance option showing up on the left, meaning you have multiple auto attendants, which is a plan specific feature, but you can select one of your auto secondary attendants to send calls to. Now, one thing to keep in mind is for like after hours, right, it has a virtual receptionist, it's completely different, or it can be completely different. You can make it exactly the same if you want to, right, but you've got different menu options, you'll probably have a different greeting, and then you have these settings as well. All right, holidays, again, I'm sending it here for these other options. And this is fairly common for like a small business, right, a one-man or, like under 5 people kind of organization probably, but a lot of customers are using the virtual receptionist, typically going like this. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want, right? So I can add from spare numbers if I want to, right? I can also buy additional numbers like I did before. Right, and again, anywhere where you see this add from spare numbers or by numbers, it will add it directly to the spot you're talking about, or you're looking at. Right, custom greeting, you can have a custom greeting or text-to-speech for your conference room. We just click enable, and then you would type in what you want it to say, and you would click on save. Now, even if I don't have this enabled, right, I leave it as disabled, when I call this 702 number, the system will automatically say, welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference room number. It will then ask me for the PIN number, and then I will join the conference. Main fax box number. You can only have the one main fax box number, but if you don't have one already set up, you would have the option to add from spare or buy new. If you click on edit fax box, you will get a pop-up window with 2 fields. Unfortunately, on this account, because it's so old, the fax box is not working properly. So it just gives me an error message. But on your accounts, you have those two fields. The first field is for the inbound notification, right? So you put an email address there, and that email address gets an email anytime a fax comes in. Right? Saying, hey, you got a fax, here's the information, and it'll have a PDF attachment in that email. One thing to keep in mind is if someone dials your fax number, right, here's those fax tones and hangs up, that inbound fax notification email address will get an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. So that's something to just keep in mind. The second field is for outbound permissions. So you could put an email address there, but it's generally designed to put your company's email domain there, right? So, everyone you can say at abccleaners.com. So that way all your staff members can send a fax out without having to be one of your users on Dash, right? They just need that proper format. 2 field +1, area code and phone number, @ your account realm, and attach a PDF or TIFF file. All right, next up we have auto attendance. So this is a plan specific feature. So on some plans, not all plans. This allows you, there's 2 main use cases. One is that submenuing that I mentioned earlier, where you would have calls going to your virtual receptionist and the menu options take them to secondary menus, right? So like you can say, hey, sure, calling about product A, click 1. And then if they press 1, you could have another attendant for product A, right? For ordering product A, for support with product A, for a quote for large quantities of product A, right? Then you have 1, 2, and 3. And you can do it for product B, product C, would each have their own attendant, for example. The other case that comes up, or is actually more common for us, is where you have multiple small businesses on the same Dash account. That either case, you would click Add Attendant, you give it a name, so something you'll recognize, and then you give it an extension number. This is just a suggestion from the system as an available extension number, and then you click on Create Attendant. Once it's here, you can click on the name. And you notice here it says unavailable in main menu. Right, that means it's a standalone attendant. Where if I look at J2 down here, whoops. I am over clicking. All right, you see on J2 it says available in main menu. Now, you can click on that toggle. It's a toggle, so you can switch it to being available and unavailable. Hold on just a minute here. Let's continue. Now you can add a phone number to an attendant. Same options, right? Add from spare, buy new numbers. And then you would click on Save Changes. Right? Add an extension number. You can add additional by clicking on Add Extension and just enter in an extension number you want it to use. And then you've got the little wrench icon on the far right under Settings. And then you see here, I've got open hours, after hours, and holidays. Right, these times or these days, depending for holidays, will match what you already set up under the main number. Right, so that incoming call handling, or the hours of operation, and your, holidays and whatnot, it will match. Now, if for instance you have these separate businesses and that you have one that's open 7 days a week, right, and another that's only open 5 days a week, obviously that's incompatible. So you'd either have to have 2 separate accounts, or you could talk to our account services team about having custom work done on your account. Usually there's a one-time setup fee for that. Now, this virtual receptionist, again, it's setting it up is just like we just saw. You add your main menu options, right? Add routes. You give it a greeting of your choice and adjust your settings. and then you would click on save and save changes. All right, next up we got devices. All right, so on your device page, green means it's connected or registered, right? So we can send calls to that device. Red means it's unregistered, right? Someone's not logged into their soft phone, for example, all right, or they don't have internet connection, what have you. Black down here, that means it's been disabled, right? Over here on the right, you see it's off. If I click it to on, the cell phone will turn green, and then I can turn it back off. Now up here at the top, you have an option here to add device. You got several options. First one is the SIP phone, right? So that's that physical VoIP phone that sits on someone's desk. And then you have several manufacturers to choose from. Yealink, Polycom, Obahai, H-Tech, Grand Stream, and Cisco. If you click on a particular manufacturer, it will expand the screen, and they have different models available that you can choose from. So basically, you find your manufacturer, you find the model of phone you're going to work with, and then you need to give it a name, right? So like Bob's phone, and then this bottom section here, the MAC address, you need to get the MAC address of the phone, right? That's going to be unique to each phone. Typically, it's a sticker on the back of the phone. However, if the phone's plugged in, you can also, under like menu status or basic settings, something like that, one of the entries will be MAC, and then you can enter that information here. You click on create device. Now, the only other thing after that you have to do within the dashboard is assign it to one of the users, right down here. However, you're not done with the phone. You will need to log into the phone's web user interface, right, the web UI, and get to the auto provisioning section. You need to enter in a URL there and basically tell the phone, hey, go to this URL, download your config file. For the specifics of that, with screenshots, you want to go to our Dash support pages. So virtualpbx.com, mouse over support, or actually click on support. It'll take you to the support pages. Scroll down about a third of the way and look to the right under VoIP phones. And you're looking for the document called auto provisioning phones. That will have screenshots for these various manufacturers, as well as additional settings just to verify that they're set properly, which typically they are by default, as well as the correct format for the URL for each of these manufacturers. You would click update on the phone or save. The phone will reboot, usually a couple times, and after it's done rebooting, it will show up as a green device on the phone, on Dash, typically. All right, next up we have cell phone. Cell phone and landline are the same, just have different labels, right? So you give it a name, right? So again, Bob's phone. And then you put +1 area code and phone number in the number field, right? It does need that +1. And then you would click on create device over here to the right. And when you do that, so let's go. So I've reopened the window for a cell phone, and I click advanced and options. And you see there's 3 options here. And this is the default setting here. So when a call comes into Dash and we send it out to a cell phone or landline, right, that phone will ring. Hopefully you'll pick up. You will hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you tell the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? If you don't press 1, well, you're not taking the call. The system will eventually send a call to your Dash voicemail. Now, this doesn't work for every situation. For instance, if you're using the cell phone label here, but you're actually sending calls to an automated answering service, say for your after-hours business, then what you would want to do, so what would happen is we send the call to your automated service. Your automated service can't press 1 because it doesn't know how to, typically. So then Dash doesn't send the call to them, right? It says, oh, they're not picking up, user busy, whatever. Send it to your Dash voicemail, and you're not getting the kind of call flow that you're looking for. So in that instance, what you would want to do is put a check mark here in the first one, right? Allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So what that does is you don't have to press 1 to answer the call, right? Call comes in, sent to this phone number. Your automated answering service is able to pick up, and we treat that like a connected call. As soon as we hear that pickup tone, right? So we let go of the call, essentially going to your automated answering service so they can handle it. Now, flip side of that is if it's actually going to your cell phone and you have this checked, that means the inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people do want that, and that's why they put a check mark. But a lot of customers don't. Like, no, I don't want them on my personal cell phone voicemail. All right. The other thing that comes up is the second one here. Oops. Is keep original caller ID. So, call comes in to your cell phone. Let's say customer Mary is calling in, gets to your cell phone, and it shows customer Mary's phone number, but you don't recognize it. You've been getting all of those extended caller warranty calls on your cell phone. You're like, no, I'm tired of those. I'm just gonna let it go to voicemail. If it's legit, I'll call them back later. However, when you do reconnect with Mary, she's already had her issue resolved or gone to a competitor. So instead, what you can do is you can uncheck this, and what shows up instead on your phone is your main company number. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go back to the dashboard. Right, under caller ID up here at the top, it's this main company phone number. This is what would show up on your cell phone in that particular scenario. So that way you know, oh, it's a business call. It's worth at least for me to pick it up. And then hopefully you make that sale. All right, next up, we have soft phone. Right, first there's a little warning message here basically saying, hey, with wireless VoIP technology, you may not be at the location that E911 is set up for. So you probably do not want to use 911 on your VoIP device at this location. At least be aware of your location. And then you see here, you have the option, you need to enter a device name, and then you've got a SIP username, a SIP password, and your realm. These are the three key pieces of information you would need to program a third-party soft phone, which is what this is set up as. Right, you can easily copy and paste the username. If you click on the SIP password box, it will reveal the SIP password. Again, you're going to want to copy and paste that, and then click on Create Device, assign it to a user, and then program that device. You could also use these credentials to program a physical VoIP phone if it didn't show up under that SIP device list. Do not change the SIP username or the SIP password, and that can break things or make it non-functional. You can also add a web phone. Again, it has that same warning message, but basically you create a name and you click create device, but it's not ready to use because the web phone uses your dash login information, so you need to actually assign it to a user to get that to work properly. All right, let's go up to the greetings manager. It's the next one down. Here you see your greeting media. So so you got the name. The source is going to be either upload, meaning you uploaded a file, TTS, meaning a text to speech, and then recording, meaning you recorded it over the phone. You can add files up here at the top. Right, you just give it a name and find the file on your computer, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can download any of these files over here under the download column here. You just click on the little down arrow icon, and then you can listen to the file, see if it's still relevant. And the little wrench icon here under edit opens it up in Windows, so then you can type in a greeting or name so that you can recognize it. If it's something you don't need, you can obviously just delete it. Groups, shorthand for ring groups, which I think I've said ring groups versus just groups. So this is a department, right? Group of people who answer calls about a similar topic. Adding a group up here at the top. You give it a name and extension number, and then you click and drag the staff members you want to answer those calls. And then you click on Create Group. All right, so once you've created a group, you can click on the name. You can always change the name of the group. And then you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the members of the group. So right now I have it set to 2. So it's going to offer it the call to the group twice. You have little arrows, up and down arrows to the right in that same box where you can adjust that. And then you would click on Save Changes. Next up, if you click the Members box, you see here, these are the members that I have, and I'm currently having the calls bring in order, right? So Michael, Jan, Aaron, Brandon, Jean. Along the top, these are timestamps. And the final one over here, you can edit that, right? It defaults to 200 on a, should default, actually it defaults to 120 for 2 minutes. This one was expanded to 240. Now I can change the order, right? So let's say Michael has a special project, so I move him to the bottom. Jean just finished her special project, so she has probably the most available time. And then I can click distribute over here, this big button on the left. And now it's in the new order. Now these green bars, these are sliders. Oops. So I can click and drag those. So I can do something like this, which is called blast ringing or ring all, depending on the telecom company you talk to. So in this instance, I'm saying, hey, call comes in, it rings everybody until one of the staff member picks up. A couple things to keep in mind. On groups, you can use cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. And if a user has multiple devices and a call comes into, and they're in a group, right? And a call comes to them from the group, all of their devices that you've added to their user will ring, right? Ring groups do not pay attention to a user feature called follow me. It's just going to ring them all until the user answers the call. Likewise, let's say a call comes in and Jean answers that call, right? And a second call comes in, Jean will hear a call waiting beep, letting her know there's another call in the group until one of her coworkers here picks up that call. All right, so any changes here, you would click on Save Changes. Now, groups can have extensions, and they can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. They can also have their own phone number, like we have down here on this group. Now, one thing to know about this phone number is that it will not pay attention to your hours of operation, right? This phone number is essentially open 24 hours. So if you're sending calls to a group this way, right, and they have their cell phones in there as part of their personal cell phones as one of their devices, they can get a call after hours. And then we've got group features. So first up is ring back. This is essentially hold music while that play, or a file will play until one of your staff members picks up, right? So you can click enable, and then you would click upload. You find the file .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. The main thing to remember is that you want the duration of the file to match or exceed the total ring time you have for the group, because the system will not loop it for you. Right? So if you have a group ring time of 120 seconds, right, 2 minutes, you want to make sure that this file plays for 2 minutes. And then you will click on Save Changes. All right, next action is that second feature. This is when you enable it, is if no one answers a call, where do you want to send it to? You got to pull down here. You can send it back to your virtual receptionist. You can send it to one of your other auto attendants. You can send it to an ACD queue. You can send it to a specific device. You can send it to a specific user. You can send it to another group. Or you can send it to a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If this is enabled, that means your users can make use of call forwarding from their VoIP phones, for example. But basically forward calls to a secondary device. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users, where you can add text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on the displays. Actually, it looks like something is wrong with the display on YouTube. Let me. See if I can. All right, hold on just a minute here. That didn't seem to happen any. All right. So we were just on groups. So let's go down here. This is numbers, or your number manager. Right now, I guess I didn't adjust the width enough, so it's only giving me the icons versus this spelt out. So here you see your numbers in use. And where they're going. You got the gear icons here, so again you can adjust the caller ID, E911, prepend, etc. Over here we got spare numbers, so these are numbers you're not using on the account. If you want to get rid of one, right, you would click on the box in front of the number, and then you see here I now have an option to delete. I can click on that delete link. I can confirm that yes, I want to delete that number. And then I click on continue. And the number has been removed from my account. You can buy numbers here, right? So local or toll free. Again, this would just add them as spare numbers, so then you can assign them later. You also have the option here to port a number. This brings up the porting or start a new port request. You give it a name, and then you choose US local or toll free. And you click next. Then you would upload a PDF of your bill, and you would click I acknowledge, and then you would keep following through the process. Now further on, you would indicate the phone number that you're porting, right, the address associated, this is usually on your bill, and you can add multiple numbers, but you can port multiple numbers at the same time. Then you have the option to, or you'll have the opportunity to download a blank letter of agency, or LOA. You need to have that filled out and signed. On the LOA, it asks for company information, like the address, the company name. That should match what your current carrier has on file, right? So porting is you're moving a number from, say, AT&T to VirtualPBX, right? So whatever AT&T has on file for your account for those phone numbers, that's what needs to be on the LOA in terms of the company name, the address. It does ask for who's authorizing it, and then that person's signature, right? It can be a digital signature, or you can, print out the form, have that person sign it, and then scan it back in. There's like 4 or 5 checkboxes you need to check, basically saying you're not going to cancel the other service until after the port completes, among other things. And then that information gets sent to our porting team. Now, for some, once you submit it, you should get an email saying you've submitted your port request. Within the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team, right, the actual people who are processing your port and letting you know that, yes, they've submitted the port request, as well as what to expect about the porting process. If you don't get those emails, or for some reason you get an error, or it looks like it didn't complete in this port process, you can email porting, so PORTING @virtualpbx.com. They still need that LOA, and they still need that copy of the bill, but they can still process the port via email versus just through the portal here. Porting a toll-free number is typically about 3 to 5 business days. A local number can be 1 day. It can be up to, but it usually averages about 2 to 3 weeks, assuming there's no problems with the documentation. If we do get a rejection, we get fairly generic information, meaning like we can get address zip code mismatch, right? They might tell us it's the address that's wrong or the zip code, but they typically are not going to tell us, oh, the zip code digits are reversed, right? Or the street number is wrong, right? They won't get to that level typically. Basically we get that information, we send it to you, and then you would need to contact your current carrier to find out what exactly is supposed to be on the port request. All right, users. To add a new user, you click Add User. Right, first and last name. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. You then create a password for them, and then you assign an extension number. Now, the main extension number you can change, right? The system is suggesting 1021 because I started this account with extension 1000, but I can make it 4210 if I wanted to instead. Create voicemail box for the user is checked by default. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say I create a user and then I add a VoIP phone to them, and I keep this check mark. They can pick up their VoIP phone, hit *98 on that VoIP phone, and it will log them directly into this voicemail box. They can then create their own PIN number, as well as the system will then prompt them to record their voicemail box greeting. You have the option here to show up in the user directory. You can always change your mind on that later. Send emails to an alternate address. If you put a check mark here, you do need a different email address here than you use for the login. What happens here is for any email that the system sends out to the user, instead of using the email address that's on the login information, they send it to the alternate, right? So like for a password reset, we go to the alternate address, right? Voicemail notifications would also go to the alternate if you have that checked. And then lastly here, send credentials to the user. I think that should be on by default, but apparently engineering folks did not agree with me. And then if you only have one user, you click on create user. If you need to add additional people, you have create user and add another. Now on the user page, the little blue suit icon, that indicates a system admin. If they're a gray person, they're just a standard user. If you click on their name, you can edit their name, right, by just editing the box. You can change their credentials by clicking on the link there. So you can change their email address or their password. You also have the option to send them the password reset email directly, if you're so inclined. You can change your voicemail box PIN number. Again, for your VoIP phone users, you don't have to set this up. They can simply just call in. For your cell phone users, or cell phone or landline users, you would need to set up a PIN number for them. Again, here you have the option for the sending to an alternate address, as well as to be in the user directory. Over here on the right is a pull down where you can change a user to be an admin or an admin down to be a user. And then we've got the time zone for the user. It's a pull down. Right, so you can search for the appropriate city or just leave it as the account default. Then we've got the little flag icon here. This is for the display language. So this is what language you want the web page to display for this user. We've got English, French, German, and Russian. Then we've got ringing timeout. The default for ringing timeout is 20 seconds. That is plenty of time typically for a call to a VoIP phone or a landline. It may not be enough time to send a call to a cell phone. So basically how PBX systems work, call comes into the PBX system, we send it to a user, and then we have to send it to the user's devices. So when we send a call to a landline telecom, or a landline phone number, right, we send it to their telecom, they say, oh, it's right here, boom. Call goes right through because they know exactly where that device is. Whereas when we send a call out to a cell phone, right, we send it to the cell phone provider, they get, hold up a second, we need to find them first, right? They ping the cell phone towers, they find you, then say, okay, send the call through. It's that delay in finding you is why you might want to have a longer ringing timeout if you have a user only using cell phones. Typically, we recommend 45 to 60 seconds. All right. Now, if you click on the extensions box, you can add additional extensions to a user, so they have multiple if you're so inclined. You have a phone numbers column here, so users can have their own phone number. If you decide you don't want them to have a phone number, you can just unassign it from them, and then click on Save Changes, for example. Now, bear in mind that the phone numbers on a user, again, will not, like groups, will not pay attention to the hours of operation, so they can get calls at any time. If you want to delete a user, if you click on their name, right, you have the option here at the very bottom to delete user. And then I usually recommend removing their devices as well as their conference rooms. And then click proceed. And then I have removed that user. Next up, you have the devices box for a user. We'll go to Jade faxing test here. So you can add from spare devices, right? So device that's no longer being used by a former employee, for example. Or we can just add new device. You have the same options, right? So SIP phone, cell phone. But for soft phone, when you click on it, you close that warning message. It'll take a little while to load. So it starts off with that third-party application, right? So you got to give it a name. It's got that funny username, password. But at the very bottom, below where it says View Configuration Guide, it has a toggle where it says, right now it says Use Third-Party Application. If I click on that, it will flip it to say Use VirtualPBX Application. Oh, it looks like it's not going to work that one. Now, unfortunately, the VirtualPBX soft phones are tied to the user email, and right now the system's only allowing the users to have, or each email address associated with the user to only have the one soft phone. But when you click that toggle to say use VirtualPBX application, you give it a name, you click on create device, and then you would click on save changes. When you click save changes, then this user gets an email with this VirtualPBX soft phone username and password, right? So it's going to be different than their Dash login. At that point, they would want to download the app from either the App Store or from our website, in terms of if they're using desktop version. Likewise, I find it easier to add the web phone directly on the user page. For the user, you would just select devices, web phone, and then you give it a name and then create device, and then save changes. Once you click save changes, right, this Jade faxing test user can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net on either Chrome or Firefox and use their Dash login information to log into that page, and then they can make and receive calls from their browser. User features. Caller ID number will only work if a user has their own phone number. Right, you turn it on, you select whichever phone number on that user you want to use. This will then be the outbound caller ID when this user makes a call out from their VoIP device, instead of the main company number ID. All right, call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover mode, right? Off means you're not using it. On, if you turn it on, that means I'm sending calls to this particular phone number, right? Now, this phone number should not already be a device on the user, right? This is something they use as a backup or sporadically. Now, your users can set up call forwarding themselves. You do not have to do it for them. They can access this via the user portal, as well as using feature codes on their VoIP phones. And then we have failover mode. This is for your VoIP phone users. This is something you do have to set up for them. But basically what it is if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right, because the system can detect that, and a call comes to the user at that time, the system will automatically forward to their forwarding device. All right, hot desking is also a VoIP feature. When you click enable, you do need to give a hot desk ID. I usually just say make it their extension number, especially if you're using 4-digit extensions. And then you can click save changes. It's up to you if you want to set up a PIN number. What hot desking is if you're in a shared office environment where you may switch desks from day to day, right? So it's Tuesday, July 6th. I come into the office after the holiday weekend and I sit at desk number 7. I pick up the VoIP phone there. I hit *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system will prompt me to enter my hot desk ID and then the hot desk ID PIN number if that was required. And then I get a message saying calls will be sent to this device. Right? So now when any call that's coming to my user, right, it will go to the device, the phone that I'm sitting at. Right? End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking, and I go home. Let's say the next time I come into the office isn't until Friday, because I have that hybrid work schedule, and I walk into the office, someone's already sitting at desk number 7. Right? Say, hi Sheila, how's it going? I walk down the aisle and I sit at desk number 10. Right? I sit down, I do the same process. I pick up the phone, hit *11, enter my hot desk ID number, and now calls will come to me at desk number 10. And then you click on save changes. Voicemail box. Again, this is turned on because the user was created with a voicemail box. By default, it's going to look something like this. Right? So you'll have voicemail box enabled. Voicemail to email is also enabled. And then you have attached messages to the email. So voicemail comes into the user. They get an email. It's saying, hey, you got a voicemail. There's also an attachment in that email that they can double click on and listen to. Right? So they can listen to it via their computer. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. So if your staff is good about going back in and deleting messages, you don't have to worry about it. If people are not good about it, they're forgetful or what have you, then you also have this other option right here, right above, where it says delete messages from database after sending the notification. Right? So after we send that email with the attachment, right, with the voicemail message, the system will then delete the voicemail from the system, so that way this user doesn't have a voicemail is full option or message playing. Fax box. Users can have their own individual fax box. If you click enable, you have the option of adding a spare number, buying a new number, or using an extension. I typically recommend making use of a phone number, so that way the user can have inbound and outbound faxing capability right out of the gate. If you choose an extension number, they can only receive faxes. If they try to fax out, the caller ID that shows up is that extension number you create, right? Instead of a full phone number, which will not work, right? The fax will fail. And then again, you have that same format of how to fax out. Conference bridge, right? If I enable it, that means this user can host/moderate a conference. The only thing an admin has to do is create a PIN number for them and then click on save changes. This PIN number, by the way, the user can change themselves under the user portal once we get to that page. Follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. So when you first enable it, it looks like this, right? So everything is set up to do not ring. So then you decide, okay, what devices are going to be in use? And then you see, like on ring groups, right? You have a timestamp going across the top, and this last box you can edit. So you can click distribute, right? So now I'm ringing in this order, or I could click and drag and change the order around, and then I can click distribute again, right? Again, sliders, so I could go blast ringing at all times. Music on hold. If you click enable, that means you want this user to have their own hold music, and then you would then upload a file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. This first field, by the way, is a pull down, so you can see the other media files you already have on the account, and you can select one of those. Either way, you would click on Save Changes after you're done. Customize call recording. So when you first enable it, it's going to look like this, where everything is under account default, parentheses off. Right. So then what it is basically the system is saying is which calls you want it, or what kind of calls you want recorded. Inbound internal means coworker Bob called me. Right. Whereas inbound external means customer Mary called me. Right. Outbound internal, excuse me. That means I called coworker Bob. Right. We're planning our fantasy football drafts. And outbound external means I called customer Mary back. And then you click on Save Changes. Now, depending on your account will determine how much storage you have on your account. So you can refer to it on the pricing page, or you can verify with our account services team. The pricing page only has the most current plans up there. So if you've been with us for like a year or so, you'd want to double check with our account services team, because the storage limits have varied and changed over time. There is an overage, right? So once you go over your account allotment, even if it's just 0.1 or 0.01, you get that next full chunk of whatever the allotment is. And I don't remember the pricing for the addition once you go over, or for the next storage block. You can also set up, if you have an AWS account, you can link AWS to your Dash account, so you can have a bucket for like your call recordings for your, I think you do it for faxes and voicemails. So those are all other options. All right, next up we got the voicemail boxes. You can add a new voicemail box up here at the top. And the reason to add a voicemail box would be for use with your groups or your ACD queues, instead of using a someone's personal voicemail box. And then you notice the users here have their own voicemail boxes, and they're listed on, they have their name under the user field here. Now, you can always click on the wrench icon for any voicemail box. Right, so this is where you would see their name, the name of the box, their voicemail number, and their PIN number. For a manually created voicemail box, you want to double check the greeting media, and either select a media file or upload a media file. In the temporary file, this is for your out of office, right, vacation voicemail. So this would, if you have something selected under the temporary field here, this will supersede the media file, right? And then when, say, Bob comes back from vacation, you just put temporary back to none, and then his normal voicemail greeting will play. Versus for the voicemail box you created, you want to upload a file, so that way there's a media file there. You can also record it over the phone, right? You would just use those, the voicemail number and the PIN number, and dial into your main number. That goes to the virtual receptionist, hit *97. Then it'll ask you for the voicemail box number, and then the PIN number, and then you can record over the phone. Next up is recipients under advanced. You want to click on add a new recipient and add an email address here. Right? You can have multiple email addresses to a voicemail box. Now, for your user voicemail boxes, right, they already have one recipient built in, right? That email address used for login. But if you want to have additional people on top of that, or email addresses, you can add that here as well. And then we have options. So once you have a voicemail greeting and the recipients, then you can click on already set up, right? Because the voicemail box is ready to go. Now, for a manually created voicemail box, I do typically recommend to click on the delete after notification option here, just because you don't necessarily have someone who's dedicated to that voicemail box, and it's just easier since you already have the attached to email set up. Also up here, this is that announce only mode that I mentioned way back when we were talking about the virtual receptionist, where if you want a menu option that goes to a voicemail box that gives like their hours of operation or directions. All right, so this is advanced routing, and what we have here is direct inward system access. This allows you to have allows cell phone or landline users to call into your main number and log in over the phone and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, the caller ID that shows up is not their cell phone number, and instead your main company number. All right, so first you would click to enable, and it creates a PIN number automatically for you. You can click edit settings. Right, you can change the PIN number here. You can also give it an extension number, and then click on Save Changes. So now your staff members can call into your main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. When they hear that main greeting play, they enter extension 1003, and then they enter in this PIN number. They will then hear dial tone, so they can hit area code and phone number of where they want to call out to. And when they do that, instead of their cell phone number showing up on the display, right, it's going to be this main company number that shows up on the outbound caller ID. Now, by default, DISA, direct inward system access, isn't enabled on all accounts or on new accounts. And that is because if someone is able to figure out your PIN number and or the extension number, they can start making outbound calls on your account, and you may not notice it until it's way too late, right? Basically, most people wouldn't notice until their next bill when they say, hey, why do I have overage charges? Now, the only way you may notice it is if you happen to be looking at your call logs, which is the next feature here. And this shows your call history on the account. And there might not be a lot just because it's been pretty early. Here we go. So green arrow to the right, that means that's a call that came into the system. And you can say here it was offered to these devices. Although it looks like there was a routing problem there. The no route destination is not common. You see here, the yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. Mike here used a SIP phone to dial this particular phone number, and that call ended normally. You see VirtualPBX called me on this account, and it went to this particular soft phone, but no one answered. Now the little fire hydrant icon here, this creates an email which has the technical details of the call. I would recommend that you type in also what your experience was, right? Like, my phone didn't ring, or the call quality was horrible, or what have you, just so we have an idea of what is going on or what you experienced, and that will help us better isolate what's going on. You also have this custom tab where you can set up a different view. All right, so I can go, hey, the previous month, these are all my calls. I can download this as a CSV file, and then I can like sort the information via my spreadsheet program of choice, assuming I'm not good enough with spreadsheets to do too much with it, other than pretty much sort by phone number. But that's an option there. Next up, we have the feature codes. I've mentioned the hot desking ones already. You also have the call forwarding ones. There's some others. Now these are all available on the support pages. Right, there's a feature codes document. There's also the phone commands cheat sheet PDF, which has all these with a brief description all on one page. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we have ACD queues. So ACD queues, there's also ACD queues Pro. These are add-on features available on some plans. So double check with account services to see what's available. The standard ACD queues, which we're looking at right here, I believe they start at $30 a month, or maybe it's $15 a month now per queue. Right, ACD queues Pro, last I looked at pricing, was $99 per month per queue. All right, so queues have different routing options available than ring groups. However, currently queues are also limited to only making use of VoIP phones. Right, so we can't route a call to a cell phone user if they're logged in to the queue. Right, you can click on add new queue, but I'm just gonna click here and click on the little wrench icon, or gear icon, excuse me. You've got the queue name, which unfortunately it's really cut off here. but you've got more room depending on your display. A queue caller number. This is a number that goes directly into the queue. You can have either a phone number or an extension number. You have queue routing strategy. I really need to double check this one of these days. The queue routing strategy, you've got ring all, which rings everybody at the same time. You've got round robin, which will equalize out over time. You've got most idle, which means whoever's been waiting the longest for a call will get the next call that comes in. You have least calls, which means least amount of connected calls, right? Then that person will get the next call that comes in. And then you have least offers, which is a combination of connected and missed calls. So, for instance, let's say Bob and Mary are logged into the queue. And we'll go with least calls, right? So Mary has spoken to 5 people. Bob has spoken to 2 people. Under least calls, the next call comes in, goes to Bob. Right? Now, under least offered, let's say Bob has been offered a total of 20 calls, but Mary's been only offered 5 calls. Under least offers, next call that comes in goes to Mary. Now, let's say Bob and Mary have been working for a couple hours. Dylan logs in. Under least calls and least offered, Dylan gets the next call that comes in. And actually, yeah, correct. All right. Then we've got hold treatment, which looks like it got bumped off. But you can upload a file, .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Under ACDQs Pro, you also have options like announcing their position in line, announcing their expected wait time. You can have multiple or different media files play as well. All right, queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time people can wait on hold. The queue call limit, right now it's set to 4. This is how many people can wait on hold. Now this is on top of people who are already talking to your staff members, right? So like 2 people can be on, 2 of your staff members could be handling calls, and 4 more people can wait on hold. Now timeout immediately if empty. If you enable this, this means if you have no staff members logged in and a call comes into this queue, the system will treat it as if they hit this timeout already. An escalation queue, this is like an overflow queue. Basically, you're sending calls to a secondary queue if all your staff is busy. And then escalation call flow after timeout. This is where you're sending the calls after a call has reached this timeout, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind is if a call comes into this queue first and it goes to an escalation queue, even if it goes to like a 4th escalation queue, the system keeps track of the first queue of the timer from this first queue, right? So the call came into this queue first, it goes to a couple other queues, but then the timeout finally hits, it's going to send them back to this escalation call flow timeout because this is the originating queue. Right, agent behavior. So agent recovery time, how much time an agent has between when a queue call ends and when they're offered a new call from this queue. Typically anywhere from 0 to 30 seconds. Gives your staff time to fill out notes or get a sip of water. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, basically means if your staff member misses a call, the system puts them on away mode until they mark themselves available again. Right, and then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. This is set, the default is 20 seconds, which is typically plenty of time for a VoIP phone user. And then you would click on save changes or create if you just created a new queue. Then you have the little members icon here on the left. If you click on that, now call center members, these are all the people who are available to be in a queue. Right? They don't have to be in all of the queues, they can be in select queues. If you click on manage members, then you'll get 2 lists. Basically, you can add people over into your queues so then they become available to be in the queues. And then once you've added people to your queues, let's actually click on the queues link itself. If you click on a queue, you click on add agents. and then you would click and drag them over, although my screen is getting cut off. Once you've added agents, you can then select one of those or any of those agents to be a manager for the queue. Now, for your staff members, right, they can log in through the web page, right? They would go to dash.virtualpbx.com, log in, they can click on ACD queues, they'd be taken to this page. They can click on begin session, and you notice here I'm on this queue here, and you start on a standard queue, you start off as away. Now you got a little phone icon up here to the top right. If you click on that, this is where your staff members would select the VoIP phone they want to use as their default queue device. We do recommend that they select one device. You do not want to leave it on ring all or select all. That has caused some people problems. It's been inconsistent, so we haven't been able to isolate exactly what the issue is yet. Up here you have your status. So you start off as away. When you're ready to take calls, you mark yourself as ready, and now you're green. And you notice here I'm also in this queue down here, I believe. Right, so I can be in multiple queues at once. So green means you're ready to take a call, right? Red means you've marked away. Blue means you're on an inbound call. Yellow means you're on an outbound or external call, right? External from the queue. And then gold means you're on recovery time. Right, so like on lunch, if I go to lunchtime, I mark myself as away. Right, end of my day, I click end session. Now ACD Queues Pro, they also have a third option here for performance, so that a manager or admin can compare agents to each other in terms of their statistics. ACD Queues Pro also allow managers to eavesdrop on a call, whisper to their staff member while they're on a call, or barge into a call. And I would recommend looking at the ACD Queues Pro page for a full set of the feature differences. All right, blacklist. This is a feature available for everybody. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers to block from reaching your account. Over here on the right is edit blacklists, I believe. No, that might have been changed. All right, up here at the top, sorry. Edit lists, or edit settings. Click add to create a new list. Otherwise, click on an existing list. Right, give it a name. Block anonymous. If you turn this on, that means if we don't get a valid inbound caller ID, we're blocking the call. Right, so they hit their caller ID. Otherwise, you would click on add number, put +1 area code and phone number, and then click add, and continue to do so for all the phone numbers. Once you're done, click on save, go back to settings, and then make sure that your list is over here on the right under selected. Once they're under selected, that means those lists are active, meaning any phone numbers on those account or under these lists will be blocked. So if they try to call any of my phone numbers, they get a busy tone. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create a rule to change your outbound caller ID. Now, the phone numbers that you change it to have to be on your account. So the first rule, or first option here, is this one down here at the bottom. You choose the phone number you want it to display. Right, you give it a name, choose a phone number, and then in this case I'm using a feature code. So my VoIP phone users pick up the VoIP phone. They hit *71, and then they dial the phone number they're reaching out to. And when they do, it's this phone number will show up as their caller ID. Right, the other option you have is this one up here at the top, where I'm saying, hey, 408 area code. So whenever my VoIP phone users call a 408 phone number, this 408 phone number shows up as a caller ID. Again, that's a plan-specific feature, so you'd want to check with account services if you don't see this option here and see what plan you would need to move to. Fax Manager, this shows your fax activity on the account. Right, so you can see where inbound faxes were coming to, as well as check outbound faxing activity. You can see the email to fax logs. If you had an entry here, there's a little eyeball icon over here to the right that you would click on. This would give you additional information about what's going on with the fax, like invalid attachment. It's basically usually we see like a bad attachment, or sometimes people use their personal email address instead of the one used for their login. The monitor is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members, right? So green, waiting for a call. Blue means they're on an inbound call. Red, they're away, etc. Up here at the top, you can see active incoming calls. You also have parked calls, and you would see the parking spot number. The number manager basically takes you back to your spare numbers, so you can buy or port numbers. The recording manager will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, where you can listen and download your call recordings. You can also link that. I believe I mentioned that you can link that to AWS. Reports is advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature, so you'd want to talk to account services. But basically, this allows you to create custom reports to get a better idea of your call activity. It's typically a little bit more useful than the call logs for most people. Voicemails. This takes you to your voicemail box manager. So you can see voicemails on a particular user. I don't know if I have any that are currently active. You might want to look at one of the previous streams where I had active voicemails. They're like, you can put a check mark in front of a voicemail and you can move it to another user, right? If it's the wrong person, as well as delete a voicemail box or delete a voicemail, listen to it, get the date and time, etc. Webhooks. This links Dash to other software via APIs. You actually want to talk to our sales team about this as they have more information. You can also look at developer.virtualpbx.com to see examples of what we have done linking Dash to other software, like Slack, for example. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal. As an admin, you cannot get to anyone else's user portal, right? You can only get to your own, but you can get to anything else via those other sections we went to. So here you would see your voicemails. You can listen to it, see the date and the time that it came in on, as well as play back. You can see your call history on your user. You can change the date range of faxes. Again, you can see your inbound and outbound faxes. And you can change the filter range here just to see if there's any difference. Yeah, see, I have other call activity going further back. The contact list, this is everything in your Dash account. This is not something your users can add to themselves. So like your sales people would not be able to add their client list here. But basically it allows you to see the different users and their extensions and their groups, etc. The conference tab, this might be cut off because of my resolution here. Over here to the right, this is where your users could update their moderator pin as well as their participant pin. And then they have the options here to have people, when they join, they come in deafened or muted. And then the bottom, play in entry and exit tones. When you're in an actual conference, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can hang up on the conference or end the conference. Also, when you have people in a conference, you can mute a specific person as well as kick a specific person. Under settings and devices, this is where your staff members would set up their own call forwarding. Just click on enable and then the +1 area code and phone number, and then click on save. So I'll see the status of their devices. And that is everything. Haven't seen any questions here. It looks like we had some connection problems at times. So I'm sorry that there was some blurriness going on. I'll have to see what I can do to correct that. But we're back on the dashboard. We will be back next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. We'll go over this again. You can see previous streams that hopefully are not blurry, as I don't recall any that were. And be about 2 weeks ago would have been the last stream. And you'll have a better imagery for that. Beyond that, I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.